Ashton Jeanty is primed to be a top 10 fantasy running back immediately, but there are other running backs in this class with great fantasy potential. We talked through the top 3 running backs in the 2025 draft class on today's episode of Locked On Fantasy Football.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen every day. I'm one of your co-hosts, Michelle Magdziuk, and when I'm not doing this, I'm a researcher and fantasy analyst with NFL Network.
And I'm your other co-host, Vinnie Iyer. When I'm not doing this, I'm writing about NFL fantasy and betting for sportingnews.com.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $250 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Just head over to FanDuel.com or download the app today to join. We are going to talk through the top 3 running backs in the 2025 draft class. Now, we both agree on the top 2. Our number 3 is different. So technically, we're going to talk through 4 running backs today. Right at the top, though, I don't think it's really a question at all that Ashton Jeanty is the best running back in the 2025 draft class. I mean, he offers it all, right? He offers that big timeshare or like workload ability. He's explosive on the field, very tough to bring down. I mean, a missed tackle machine, 153 missed tackles this last season, nearly 50 more than any other player in the FBS. And, you know, he put up 2,600 rushing yards. He had 29 rushing touchdowns. His body was able to handle 374 carries this last year. So he really does offer it all. If you were a team, would you take Ashton Jeanty in the top 10 overall picks?
Yeah, I mean, especially if I had a need at that position, but I would look at several teams have a need at that position. We can go down the line quickly to set the table for the show. You have the Raiders, you have the Cowboys, the Broncos, the Steelers, the Browns. These are some of the teams we'll be talking about, but those are significant openings all over. The Broncos are also one of those contending teams that we're going to look at more carefully as we go forward. So I think there's a range of outcomes for Ashton Jeanty to fall out of the top 10, but I would not think so. I think maybe you look at the Cowboys who are at 12, that could be the farthest he would drop here. And they could also move up to go get him in the top 10, concerned about another team snagging him away from them. But the Raiders look like a spot right now that would be the first entry again for Jeanty. I mean, you look at some of the teams picking ahead. I think it's too luxury pick for some of the teams. The Browns, they need a running back, but luxury pick. The Giants need some other things defensively. You look at the Patriots. I don't think you're going to see a team like the Panthers or Saints go there. So it really looks like the Raiders at number 6 are there. And then the next team you really look at is the Cowboys, barring a trade up. So I love Jeanty. He's a really good prospect. Again, the last few times teams have used a high pick on running backs, they've worked out. You had Bijan Robinson, you had Jahmyr Gibbs. Those guys were legit fantasy performers. Even Najee Harris as a first rounder was okay, but you go Todd Gurley, Ezekiel Elliott, Christian McCaffrey. On different teams, even you have Josh Jacobs and Saquon Barkley, the original teams. These are all first-round picks. They've all turned out to be very good fantasy assets. And the key with these first-round picks is the early ones, right? We're not talking about back the Clyde Edwards-Helaire type picks in the back half of the first round, but these early first-round picks have all paid off, and Jeanty's going to be one of them. So I feel really confident that these teams know what they're doing with his skill set, and whoever takes him is going to be very happy and put him to work as we expect as a 20 to 30 touch back per week.
Yeah, I think you brought up the Raiders and the Cowboys, so 6 and 12, but one team I'm really eyeing for him is the Bears at number 10. I think they would definitely consider that. They are a team that can use this luxury pick right now. They have weapons on offense. They've used their free agency money on offensive line. They have defensive pieces with Ben Johnson. That's really, really intriguing. But I agree with you. I think the farthest he falls is 12 to the Cowboys. But just like looking at his production from college, going back to that, I mean, we know his 2024 season was just absurd. 185.8 rushing yards per game. Most in the FBS by almost 50 rushing yards per game. Omarion Hampton was second with 138. That was the second most rushing yards per game in a single season in the FBS since at least 2000. The only running back that averaged more in a season in the FBS was LaDainian Tomlinson in the 2000 season. He was then drafted number 5 overall to the Chargers in that 2001 draft. And then the guy right behind him in third place behind Ashton Jeanty in rushing yards per game in a single season is Melvin Gordon in 2014. Like, both of these guys ended up being fantastic for fantasy. Obviously, LaDainian Tomlinson much more than Melvin Gordon, but and both went very early in their drafts. Gordon was 15th overall. Like I said, Tomlinson was 5th overall. I do think the draft starts for Jeanty probably at the Raiders pick. I can't see one of the teams in the top 5 taking him unless the Jaguars get really crazy. But the Raiders, it's going to come up to Pete Carroll, right? Does he want that running back that he loves so much, or do they go wide receiver instead? But I do think the Raiders would be a nice landing spot for him.
Yeah, and you'll see the Bears and the Cowboys. Those would be the most aggressive teams that might jump the Raiders, get in position at 5, maybe make a deal to jump them. But I think the Raiders would also want to make this pick more than the other teams. And I'm not saying that is a good or bad thing. I just think that's the nature of Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly. They have their quarterback for now. I mean, Geno Smith is going to be their answer in the short term. Wide receiver, this class is pretty deep, and there's kind of targets they can go after away from Ted McMillan. Now, they could think about the wide receiver, but I think with wide receiver, when you look at the supply and demand, I think there's a lot more value that you can get at wide receiver later. Where, look, you have Jeanty, you have Omarion, Hampton, and then you have a cluster of guys who are similar, but they don't necessarily stand out to be those full-time load-carrying backs, where I think you have 2 in Jeanty and Hampton. And what Michelle also pointed out is really good to know, that the translation of a college running back's production to his NFL production is starting to get less cloudy. Like, we just know that if he's going to produce in college, because a lot of these systems are the same, right? The way they operate, some of these offenses in college are kind of meshing with what they do in the NFL, the concept and things. So if they're productive in college at a high level against good competition, and the eye test is a clear pass for us, they ace it, then we're going to feel really good about them in fantasy. Now, there's all kinds of things people measure, like SPARQ score and all that. But the thing I look at the most is I just watch it. Did he stand out? Did he run past people? Was he durable? Did he have some explosive plays? Did he finish well in the red zone? If all those things are true, and they are for Jeanty, then we're in really good shape here. So if he's on the Raiders, Michelle, he's going to get a ton of work. They have nobody except Raheem Mostert at this point. And Raheem Mostert is an older body with broken down knees. So Jeanty is just going to get all the workload he can handle. And that's why I think he's more headed there, because at least the Cowboys have a Javonte Williams, somebody to fall back on. The Raiders have nobody to fall back on here. So right now I'm feeling the Raiders or the Broncos, keeping him a Bronco from Boise State to Denver, would make the most sense for Ashton Jeanty.
Yeah, I'm leaning the Raiders too for just his best fantasy ceiling for this upcoming season, for his rookie season, right? Like, if he goes to the Raiders, it's hard not to envision him getting at least 300 touches. Also, he should be getting a lot of targets too, because there's Brock Bowers, Jacoby Myers, and that means they didn't use a first-round pick on a wide receiver, right? Now maybe they do in the second round, but there'd be targets to go around with Geno Smith there and Pete Carroll. Yeah. There should be scoring opportunities as well. So I do like that fit. And then obviously if he goes to the Bears, it's just going to be super exciting because of Ben Johnson. However, I would expect him to be in somewhat more of a timeshare with DeAndre Swift. Now, Swift was very inefficient last year, averaging just 3.8 yards per carry, 39th among 44 qualified rushers. So they probably are looking to upgrade, which they should be, but still that's a lot more competition in Swift than Jeanty would have if he went to the Raiders. Is there anything else you want to say about Jeanty? Like, is he going to keep going up your rankings? Right now, he's sitting at running back 8 for me. It seems a little low, but I want to see where he goes before I keep pushing him up.
Yeah, I don't think you worried too much about what happened with Bijan or Jahmyr Gibbs. I mean, Gibbs had to fight through that timeshare with David Montgomery. Bijan, he was misused a little bit by Arthur Smith, and you had the Tyler Algier situation. Cloud some things where I think if it's the Raiders, I think it's pretty clear that he's going to be a top running back. Now, if he goes to the Bears, we drop him maybe a little bit if that timeshare possibility is there. But not only is the Raiders just like the best fit for him schematically, but also just to dominate and be the centerpiece of that offense. Like that's what he would be. Where with other offenses like the Bears, he would be a part of that offense, right? They would mix him in. They wouldn't necessarily like overwork him in the running game. They would throw to him a bit. So I love Jeanty, and I think top 10 pick is very legitimate for him in fantasy.
Yep, I agree. We are going to get into the running back 2 in this draft class, and Omarion Hampton. He'd be getting a lot more love if it wasn't for Ashton Jeanty being such a beast, but he deserves recognition, and he's going to be fantasy relevant probably immediately when he gets into the NFL. So let's talk about him and talk about best fits, his skill set, and all that right after we take a quick break. This episode is brought to you by Chewy. You've probably heard of Chewy. They really do have everything you need to keep your pet happy and healthy. Whether you're shopping for food, treats, or even pet healthcare, Chewy makes it fast, easy, and affordable. With over 100,000 products from all your favorite brands, Chewy has everything your pet needs, from food and treats, toys, beds, and grooming. And it's not just for dogs and cats. They got supplies for birds, fish, reptiles, and small pets too. Chewy also makes it easy to manage your pet's health with prescription, telehealth vet visits, and even in-person vet clinics rolling out nationwide. And auto ship is a game changer. You could set up automatic deliveries for food, treats, or any essentials so you never run out. You can easily change or cancel at any time. We have an automatic subscription at our house for my dog's favorite toy. It's a little squeaky duck. She cannot live without it for even a single moment. So we have to keep a few on hand at all times. And Chewy never lets us down. They always arrive on time. They're super, super fast and reliable, and they have a great customer service team. That's for sure. Chewy has everything you need to keep your pet happy and healthy. Right now, you can save $20 on your first order and get free shipping by going to chewy.com or clicking the link in the description. Save $20 on your first order with free shipping by clicking the link in the description. Minimum purchase required. New customers only. Terms and conditions apply. See site for complete details. All right, let's continue talking through the top running backs in the 2025 draft class. And number 2 comes in Omarion Hampton from North Carolina. He has the build, that's for sure, and he has the production. I mean, he's nearly 6 feet tall, 5'11", 3/4. He ran a 4.46. He's 221 pounds, like build and the speed. He's explosive, good after contact, solid enough pass catcher as well to be like a full workhorse back. He does need to work on pass blocking, but most guys do coming out of school. Back-to-back years with at least 1,500 rushing yards and 15 rushing touchdowns. Like I said, he'd be getting a lot more love if it wasn't for Ashton Jeanty, but he's still projected to go in the first round. Where would you like to see Hampton go, Vinnie?
Yeah, I mean, right now in fantasy, I think this is pretty conservative. We have a big drop off. This might tell you a little bit. The Jeanty's headed to a really good spot here because we have RB9, 8, wherever you're looking for Jeanty. You have Omarion Hampton just past the RB2s in the 25 to 28 range. So we want to get him above that wherever he lands. And the place I'd really like him to go, and I don't see this happening, I'm hoping for it, maybe I'm willing it to happen, is the Chiefs. I just want him to clean up that backfield, take it with him, be the main guy, just move on from Kareem Hunt and Isaiah Pacheco, get a complete back, give Patrick Mahomes an absolute weapon to take pressure off him and really get that running game going again in Kansas City. But I also see the Raiders being a fit if they pass on Jeanty and go there. But to me, where I really want to see him is your Steelers, because, again, I think they want to be a run-oriented offense and set things up downfield for Arthur Smith. And I know their quarterback situation's in flux, just much like the Raiders, except they don't have a bona fide answer right now besides Mason Rudolph. So they have to look and say, we need to become a running team. We know this is what Mike Tomlin wants to do, and this is a team. If you go back, I'm going to bring up a name here, Rashad Mendenhall, Najee Harris. This is a team that over the years with different general managers here, going back to the previous regime and now with Omar Khan, that they would look at definitely getting a running back early in the draft. Like, I don't think it's totally out of the realm of possibility here because, again, he's a key element to what they want to do offensively, play off the defense, take pressure off whoever that quarterback is. I think they could also look at a quarterback, and that's going to be the rub here. Do the Steelers have to go after Jackson Dart? Do they trade back to try to get multiple picks so they can get Hampton? But I do like him a lot in that particular offense. Now, the Broncos, I don't know if they'll be a little bit gun shy because of Javonte Williams coming from North Carolina. It's different situations and all that, but sometimes that sticks in a team's memory where you took a shot on somebody. So we'll see how that plays out. But then if the Cowboys don't get Jeanty, then you say Hampton would be a good place for him. So I think the Steelers or Cowboys, kind of that second place, kind of the silver medal here. If you don't get the Ashton Jeanty, going to the Raiders, if that would happen, then you said Steelers or Cowboys should be racing to get Omarion Hampton to take care of their backfield here in 2025.
Yeah, I think the best fit by far would be the Broncos. And I get your point with Javonte Williams, but hopefully they're not helmet scouting, right?
Yeah,
That's never successful. And then also it was a much different situation. Javonte Williams was like a linebacker for the first couple of years, right? In college or whatever, and then transitioned so it's a different situation, different, coaching staff. So I wouldn't think that would actually keep them from shaking him. The Broncos have a good offensive line that Hampton could run behind. That offense looks like it's going to excel in the second season with Bo Nix. And they use the running backs a lot in the passing game, which is great, right? Because obviously there's a huge workload there for whoever enters this backfield for carries, because right now the competition is Jaleel McLaughlin and Audric Estime and Tyler Batty. And not like whoever steps in there is going to get a lot of carries, but also the targets is what's so huge. And Hampton is a very capable receiver. But Broncos running backs over the last 2 seasons with Sean Payton have had 270 targets, the most in the NFL. So whoever lands here is in a nice spot as long as they can actually be productive, unlike Javonte Williams was able to be. And then I do think if he falls, I would actually rather him go to the Commanders than the Chiefs. That's where we differ. Like I can't picture the Commanders sitting there at 29 having Omarion Hampton fall in their lap and not taking him.
Yeah, I could see all these scenarios playing out, and I think he brings in more of those wild card teams, like the Commanders, the Chiefs. Like there are the obvious landing spots, and there's the not so. I think the one place where you may not be excited about either of these guys landing, I'll just be honest with you, is the Browns, because there could be a little bit of sloppy mess here. You're not going to get a discount on these players, and you're still going to get them in the Browns offense. Where if the Browns take a running back later, then you feel okay with that. But you want these guys on upside offenses that are going to do something and score and move the ball. You do not want them in situations where they're going to maybe struggle and get stuck with a team that's not very good around them. So again, that's why we're willing some of these things to happen. Like you want, if they go to Commanders or Chiefs, touchdown opportunities are just going to roll out of that offense, and they're going to have all those chances to be a check down guy as well. So that's why we were rooting for Hampton to land in a very good spot. Really, both of these guys, where they're the centerpiece of the offense, and they're just not like an afterthought or kind of just adding to a group of weapons or whatever. So I think the teams that target Hampton and Jeanty are going to be more guys looking to say, we want a back who can touch it 25 times versus a complimentary back. So let's hope that happens and he doesn't get stuck, Hampton, in a place where, okay, we'll add him to our backfield and see what happens. Like, that's why I'm not hoping for the Bears in either scenario.
Yeah, I mean, when you're not hoping for the Bears, I think it's a great landing spot. But I will say, if Hampton goes to the Broncos or the Steelers, I do think it's going to be really hard to rank him much lower than running back 20, right? Because then you're starting to get into the Tyrone Tracy's and the Najee Harris and Isaiah Pacheco and Tony Pollard and Brian Robinson, DeAndre Swift, like those type of guys, Ramondre Stevenson. And I would much rather take a shot on Hampton as a rookie getting a huge workload expectedly, right, with either of those two teams than go with them. And I do think he would even be a close call between like a Joe Mixon or a Chuba Hubbard or something like that as well.
Yeah, we'll just watch this landing spot very carefully because, again, once Jeanty's off the board, you saw the disparity. I think that's why we have a lower ranking in fantasy, because we're not quite sure where he's going. Like, that's why it's probably like, okay, there's some who believe he could be in the top 15, right, if he's in the right spot. But then if he's in an okay spot and you're looking at top 25, then you get out of it, and then you don't really have a straight-up starting spot. You're out of the RB2 range. So We just have to see where he lands. But I'm excited. Let's just say wherever he lands, we're going to have a lot of interest, and he's immediately going to be a pretty good value behind Jeanty, because you're going to have to expend a pretty high pick to get Jeanty, where I think there's going to be the hype and the separation, and Hampton might end up being the better value where you draft him in fantasy and get the better return on investment.
Yeah, he could be the Brian Thomas Jr. to the Marvin Harrison Jr.
Right.
of last year, right? But we have two more running backs to talk through. We're going to talk about our third ranked running back in this draft class. You and I differ on who that guy is. We will give you those running backs and talk about them in detail right after a quick break.
All right, this episode, Locked On Fantasy Football, is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. We know the MLB season has gotten underway. We're sad that March Madness is gone, but the NBA playoffs are almost here, and it's going to be very exciting with these teams battling in the East and West. And FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. It's going to be really great to watch. You got the Warriors and Thunder. That should be a good throwdown. The Celtics trying to do it again here. So really, good stuff all the way around. And with right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bet if your bet wins. And sometimes a sneeze is good luck there. So that's always good for you when you're placing your bets. And look, FanDuel makes betting so easy, whether it's picking your favorite team or diving into player props. You'll have all kinds of stuff like that with Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, what he's going to do, stuff in the stat sheet, Nikola Jokic. We have a coaching change there, so that makes it interesting for the Nuggets. From three-pointers to steals to assists, FanDuel has so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. So really, March Madness is over, but we're about to get into a lot more hoops action. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. All right, Michelle, it is time to close the show, and this is where our paths diverge. And a lot of people have done this as well, where I don't know who the best third running back is in the draft. I think it's a consensus, Jeanty Hampton. But I do like your guy. I do like him maybe a little bit later. He has been rising up the boards. He's a fun guy to talk about, so I'll let you start because he could be a future Steeler.
Yeah, I'm going with Cam Skattebo, and I don't expect him to be the third running back drafted, but he is my third favorite running back in this draft class, and I do think he offers fantasy upside. From Arizona State, he was pretty much Arizona State's whole offense. 2,300 scrimmage yards, 24 touchdowns this past year. He has the build at 5'9", 219 pounds. He's a really good receiver as well. It's 605 receiving yards this past year, most among FBS running backs. And he's not the fastest guy in the world, right? He's much more of a physical runner, downhill, strong runner, and he's not going to break off a ton of long runs, but the missed tackles are there. He just is such a strong runner. He's going to wear down defenses so much. And I do think he reminds me a lot of James Conner. So maybe that's why I want the Steelers to be able to take him maybe in the third round if he lasts there. But I do think he offers that type of fantasy upside that James Conner has offered, where Conner's not breaking away 40-yard runs, right, on a regular. But he is that physical runner that wears down teams, and he's a good, really sneaky, good receiver as well. He could be the focal point of the offense. And I think that's what Skattebo can offer if he goes to a team like the Steelers, even like the Raiders, if they wait on running back until the second, third round, or Dallas, if they wait on a running back. Like if he goes to a team that really needs to lean on him in the offense, I do think he could be special for fantasy.
Yeah, and he does his little Usain Bolt celebration. He's an exciting guy. He's an interesting guy to have on your team. And look, the Steelers are good because there's a void there for that power back. They do have Jalen Warren, just like the Bears. Like you have a DeAndre Swift who can do the change of pace, and you get a guy to pound on early downs. Now, my favorite landing spot is actually Cam Skattebo replacing Nick Chubb in Cleveland. It's weird, but they need a guy who can do a little bit of everything. And it may not be pretty at times with Skattebo, but I think they would lean on him quite a bit. Now, I've had a hard time, I'll be very transparent, figuring out where he should be landing in the draft. Now, is he partly a poor man's version of Christian McCaffrey, can do a little bit of everything? Or is he Kyle Juszczyk on hyperdrive, right? I don't know. That's maybe looking at two 49ers backs, but he's somewhere in between. I think the one thing I know is he'll run hard with a lot of energy. He will ignite and get the yards that are available here. And as Michelle pointed out, that's the one thing that Browns still might have is a good offensive line. We know the Bears have also upgraded their interior significantly with their three moves that Drew Dahlman, Joe Thuney, and Jonah Jackson. So that could also line up well. So I think if he's in the right system, I think he can produce really well. If a team takes him and tries to put him as a square peg in a round hole, make him do things he shouldn't, then you're going to be in trouble. I think you have to limit his touches. You have to be calculated with him a little bit, use him in the right situations. He can be a red zone force. So if you do that, then he's going to be really exciting. Now, right now, however, the fantasy industry is pretty low. He's RB 53. So down there buried with the RB 5s that you would take later in the draft. So I think it comes down to the landing spot. He has to be in a good spot where he's going to be used and has a chance to score touchdowns. I think that's the main thing here with Skattebo.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is, right? He could easily land on a team that already has a good starting running back, and all my hopes and dreams can die. But there are landing spots for him. There's going to be teams that need a starting running back still in the second, third round. So excited to see where he lands. Vinny, who is your running back 3 in this draft class?
Yeah, I mean, I've looked at the running backs pretty closely here, and it's a very strong class, I'll say that. So if a team drafts one of the top 12 to 15 backs, I would pay attention to see what's going to happen with that backfield in fantasy. So that's why it was really hard to rank. But I'm going Quinshon Judkins of Ohio State. Like I looked at his teammate, Travion Henderson. You also have Caleb Johnson of Iowa. Just a very strong class overall of running backs once you get past Jeanty and Hampton. So I'll leave that out there for you. But Judkins and Henderson, look, they're pretty close to me. I think Henderson's a little bit smaller, where you might have to fit him into a committee a little bit more, where Judkins he's pretty strong and can hold up, and he's good in passing situations as well on some untapped upside receiver. And that's why I think he's my pick that hopefully lands with the Broncos. I have him going in the 50s to the Broncos, like early in the second round, relatively. That would be a good spot for them, I think. So when you look at Judkins, again, he can do the power stuff. He finishes really well. If you watch any of the college football playoff, you know that's what he can do. He can just finish in a blink here. Like just your drive might be stalling, and then you put him in there, and then he can take it to the house 20 yards deep. He can do it around the goal line, and then he can also get into the open field as a receiver. I think there's some untapped potential there as well. So I really like Judkins. I mean, Henderson is very good too. So these are a couple of options from the Buckeyes. But again, I'm thinking that he could fit anywhere, but I think the team I'd like to see him most are the Broncos, because I think Denver might have to go in a little bit of different direction in the first round, but the second round, I think it opens the door to this very strong running back class for the Broncos.
Yeah, and I think this is another interesting option for the Commanders. I really do think they need to add a more exciting running back in their backfield. Judkins would be an upgrade to Brian Robinson Jr., also offer more explosion. So I would really like that landing spot as well. There's a lot of teams that need a running back right now, and that's ideal for us for fantasy, right? Because this is a really, really loaded running back draft class. We only just started this. There's so many more guys we could have talked about, and we will get to them before the draft comes around. But loaded running back draft class with a lot of teams with needs. So it's going to be interesting to see where all these guys are ranked as we get later on into the summer. But that is it for today's episode. I want to thank you all for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL Draft with Damian Parson and Keith Sanchez. Now that the season is over, get the latest draft rankings, rumors, and news every day. Find Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Hit that subscribe button if you're listening to us on YouTube. Give us a like on whatever podcast app you're listening to. We will talk to you tomorrow. Bye, y'all.